Welcome to I'ma Talk About It. I'm Alicia E., empowerment coach and ancestral healer, and I'm here to teach you how to break generational cycles, self-advocate, and ascend to happiness without the guilt of wanting a better life for yourself. You don't have to choose the same path as those before you. You can choose a better way, your way. Because if we can each heal ourselves today, we can heal the world tomorrow, together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today we have a really fun episode. It's called How to Fully Trust and Surrender to the Universe. A lot of people have been asking me this, and so many of us are shifting onto new paths. So many of us are manifesting new lives and really answering the call for our destinies. And considering how many folks have asked about it, I figured that I would make a very special podcast to answer your questions. And if for some reason you have more questions after this episode, be sure to join my Discord group. You can drop them in there and I check in when I can. Otherwise, come join me live on TikTok and ask questions during my readings or during my generational conversations. So today, we're really going to talk about three main things focused around trust. So how trust functions for you in your own life, generational healing, and generational healing, and then how the universe tests your trust and ability to surrender. And then I want to also leave you with one of my favorite affirmations that I literally say to myself all of the time, and during moments of my life where I feel like I might be questioning and I just want to surrender. It always drops me into my body, and I want to share it with you all so you can all use it and you can pass it on, pay it forward. So again, starting with the why, I've kind of already explained it, but I also want to talk about how trust can be difficult in terms of our upbringing, right? It can be one of those difficult things to cultivate in a society that rewards mistrusting behavior. For example, if we look at one of the last elections, right, we saw that Trump was elected and got away with a lot despite actually lying, right? So that was a huge global shift where you saw mistrust and lying and thievery being rewarded over and over and over again, right? So it's also this subconscious conditioning that we are subjected to all of the time. And then you also see laws or work culture that prohibits or strongly discourages you to not share your income, for example, right? So people end up lying instead of helping each other grow and expand and receive more income, because there's an energy of, if you share anything about money, then you're likely going to get fired, right? So that builds a culture of mistrust in a place where most people spend a large majority of their life if they have a 9 to 5, right? You think about it, you go in the morning and you leave in the evening. So when you're in that type of environment for so long, you start to take on those subconscious beliefs as well, and you're not really sure how to navigate with it. And then we also have social media pages that make infidelity, for example, a topic of like they become centered in comedy, right? Like there's something to laugh at, but they never actually address the pain and the hurt that came with that level of mistrust or feeling like someone was betrayed or being betrayed, right? So it becomes normal for everybody to mistrust everybody else, and then you end up mistrusting yourself and everything around you, including the universe, and then we're wondering why you can't call in your manifestation. And so we have to start deconstructing these ideas within our environment, within society, and within our energy. And so I wanted to lend some light and perspective to help you today to navigate the world and your journey with a deeper sense of peace and bliss that the universe, God, the ancestors are fully supporting you. And now you can truly shift and rest assured that everything is going to work in your favor, right? And this is really about trusting in the unseen. And this comes up, you see this a lot in law of attraction, but they don't actually talk about why it always works, other than just saying like believing in something bigger than yourself is actually super helpful. But it's super helpful because it also helps regulate your nervous system, and it gives you a sense of purpose until you can fully align and understand your own purpose, right? Because everybody has a different destiny, a different path. And so when you're beginning to fully surrender to the universe, surrender to your ancestors, like surrender to synchronicities and your abilities, like you have to start with something bigger than you so you can anchor into something while you deconstruct things around yourself and call in exactly what you need to get you like from point A to point B to manifest the life that you are desiring, right? And the goal would be to get you to a place where you're moving on your path in a way that feels just as natural as breathing, like the flow of breath, really inhaling and trusting and exhaling and trusting, something that we do so naturally, but we don't really think about it. Like that's how it truly should feel. And let's like for a second, let's actually take a couple deep breaths. So if you're in a place where you're able to do this exercise, I want you to take a deep breath in and exhale. And one more, inhale and exhale. So that type of breathing is really representative of how you should feel all of the time on your path, right? There's going to be moments that are really stressful, but it's important to tune into the parts of you that are more grounded so you can remember that in those deep energies where you can just flow, that is where your manifestation is, that is where your prosperity is, that is where spirit is. And now I want to talk about what trust looks like when you're a spiritual person, but also address the fact that sometimes when we talk about trust within the modern day spiritual community, there is a lot of spiritual bypassing and gaslighting, right? Because sometimes you have to look at your social environment or your like social impact or how you are thriving in the world in order to be able to call in your manifestation. So you surrendering as a person who presents as non-melanated is going to be very different than someone who is trying to learn how to surrender as a person who is more melanated, right? Like we have different energies, we have different ancestors, we have different experiences. And so I would be mindful of, if you're following people on social media, really pause for a moment and ensure that you're not gaslighting yourself, right? Like, because the life that I live is going to be very different than some of my non-melanated friends because I am a Black femme and I am fluid as well. And so showing up in society is going to be really different. It takes a different amount of healing. It takes a different amount of surrendering, and the path to surrendering looks completely different. Like I need to learn how to feel safe with myself before I can do anything else. And while everybody needs to feel safe with themselves, it's that path to feeling safe in society is a little bit longer because of what you experience. So when you are learning to surrender, just remember that it's always going to look different, and to just give yourself grace and the pace that you need to be able to move forward and not compare yourselves to others, right? Comparing ourselves in our journey is like one of the worst things we can do for surrendering. That's not surrendering. That's you not paying attention to your own healing and not giving yourself the love that you really deserve. And, a healthy level of trust really looks like you waking up in the morning and you feel bliss. Like you literally feel bliss. And I have this conversation with people, and it's not something that they're used to experiencing all the time because of where their nervous system is at and how they've had to navigate and feel like they were constantly trapped within their own mind or trapped within their own home or in relationships they can't seem to get out of, or like unhealthy cycles. But when you start to heal, you can literally wake up and feel bliss for the day. And even for myself, that feeling was very new when I started to experience it. And then that became my new standard. And as I grew, something else became my new standard, like beyond that bliss, or like a larger bliss, or a sustained amount of bliss. It was like more like every day and then throughout the day, you know? And it's really just leaning into the fact that the day is beautiful regardless of how it goes. And that's what surrendering looks like. Like, you know that even if you have concerns about situations in your life, you know that you will always find a way out of it. And that whatever situation you are in is completely temporary, right? Like, you have to be able to think like that when you are surrendering, because if you give your energy and too much of your time to worry, that becomes what you manifest, and you can't surrender that way. It's always, allowing energy to flow, and worry and fear and self-sabotage, they do the opposite of flow. They bind you, right? When you think of, what is it, the 9 of swords, where the person is like tied, but then the sword circle is actually open because it's self-inflicted. And so sometimes when I may be experiencing an emotion that is keeping me bound, I have to remember that sometimes it is of my own making, and I can actually come out of it and return back to surrendering to the universe. And when you're in a very aligned state of trust, you begin to experience a large amount of signs and synchronicities, messages from the universe, and then you can more easily say yes to that, and you can more easily express gratitude and accept invitations from other people, even if you have no clue where you're going. Like, it's the weirdest thing. Like, you just fully stay present, because if you're constantly thinking about the future or the past, you can't pick up on the signs, right? Because the universe wants you to enjoy the journey, enjoy day to day. And so you have to learn how to be grateful for where you at, my words today, I swear, where you are at today. So I want you to really think about your life for a moment, right? As you think about trust on your generational healing journey. And if you have a journal, again, pull it out. If not, you can just reflect on this for the day. But how have you developed your current ways of trusting, whether it's trusting people or places or your spirituality, right? I really want you to answer that. Look at all aspects of your life and say, like, from the time I was little, like, this is how I developed my trust. Like, these are the examples that I had, right? Because it's likely from your family members, from work, from romantic or platonic relationships, and how you've navigated those situations, because they directly sculpt your ability to trust, right? It manifests like real time. And as I always say, we are a direct reflection of how we were raised and of our environment. And that's where your generational healing really comes in. And again, bringing it back to society, like, if we don't start understanding the importance of generational healing and actually trusting and releasing, we can't build a society that is not focused on greed and oppression, right? Like, we have to be able to trust each other again, because, my friend and I, who are activists, were just talking about how there's many like Black presenting masculines in prison, right? And that all stems from people's mistrust, fear, greed, and money. Like, literally, it all comes from that. There is no trust. There is no balance. It's just an innate fear that leads to more money in more people's pockets. And that's what really happens when our fear and our mistrust goes unchecked for too long, for centuries long, right? And so as you're going on your healing journey and just thinking about how to fully trust and surrender to the universe, I want you to really dig deep, because everybody needs to learn how to trust on a basic level so we can trust and make change in the world. Like, it all impacts something down the road. And so learning to trust yourself and trusting that you're going to be taken care of also allows you to have energy to help other people and teach other people how to also trust and build community that is strong, right? So I appreciate everybody who has been asking this question, because if it's on your mind, it means you really care about the world around you. So I just want to applaud you for that. And I also want to talk about like how you can actually make this shift to fully surrendering, right? Aside from having those reflection questions of like, what does your trust even look like right now? But how can you then make the shift? And it starts with asking yourself, as many of my clients know, do I trust fully in the universe? And answering this question, mind, body, spirit. I always end my questions with mind, body, spirit, because people like to quickly answer, just say yes. And it's like, do you? If we're being 10,000% honest, if you check in with your mind, if you check in with your body, and if you check in with your spirit, do you trust the universe? Like, think about it for a second, right? Like, check in with your energy right now. And I want you to be really like blunt with yourself, because sometimes we have just this innate need to just like answer out of the blue, because we also as a culture have a high amount of perfectionism. So it's like, it's harder for us to take an unbiased lens at ourselves and answer the question, mind, body, spirit, are all of them aligned? And then you can say yes. Right? Like, because we tend to go no mind, no body, no spirit, just an answer. But it's like, no, check in with your thoughts, check in with your physical body, and check in with your soul and your spirit. And then if they are all a yes, then you can say yes. If they're not, then it's a no. And that's where you do your healing, right? If the answer is no, why is it no? What about the universe do you not trust? And I want to point out, because I hear this phrase sometimes with people, like saying something like, it's not that I don't trust the universe, it's blah, 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 blah. Like, straight up, that's you self-sabotaging and deflecting your own healing. Like, it's like, whenever people say that, I'm like, that is the best way to self-sabotage in the whole wide world. Like, we wouldn't be having this conversation if you had all the trust in the universe. No, like, you would have all of your manifestations if you didn't fully trust in the universe, if you were mind, body, spirit aligned energetically, and you had the capacity to receive your manifestations, right? So if you had that reaction to say, it's not that I don't trust the universe, right? Which is also coming from colonialism and like how people answer things and niceties. Asking yourself again, why do you not trust the universe? Like, what is it about the universe that makes it hard for you to trust? And write it down. And, you know, I tell my clients, like, saying I don't know it's not good enough. Like, it truly isn't anymore, especially if you're here to really help yourself. Like, we have to dig deeper, and we can approach it from different levels. But if you are saying I don't know to everything and then wondering why you're stuck, like you have to see the connection between that, right? And just to give you some more ideas, like, do you not trust the universe because of fear? And people don't always want to talk about fear. They don't want to name it, but it's something that's really important. Maybe people that you've trusted before betrayed you, or maybe you betrayed yourself accidentally, or like you feel like you betrayed yourself, but really you're just living through life, right? And you had certain repercussions, but somehow your beliefs turned them into something negative. And so now you fear taking action in certain ways, or allowing something that is unseen to help you take action? Or is it I have a hard time not knowing what's going to happen, right? Like that's a high sense of control. This is anxiety. Maybe you were raised in a household where you constantly had to read other people's energy or not get in trouble to survive, right? You kind of had to fly under the radar to not upset anybody, to not be your most authentic self. And so like you can't, like you're not comfortable yet trusting people around you because you didn't have trust in your home on many levels. So we have to look at it from many different aspects, because all of this plays a part and are going to be specific to each person, right? Like not everybody has the same path, which is why I invite you all to answer these questions on your own. And now that you have the answer, hopefully, you continue to heal through this day by day, right? Just like with relationships, you have to build trust within yourself and with others, aka the universe in this case. Like it's not going to be something that you can sprint towards. It's going to be something that you release over time. And it doesn't mean that your manifestations are going to take forever. It just means that like you don't want to rush just because you're trying to manifest something. And you never know, like it could be just one little shift that you need to make, and then your manifestation pops up the next day, and then you keep making all these little shifts and they compound over time, and then before you know it, you've manifested a hell of shit in a year. Like that happens to me all the time. But it's because every single day, and many of you know this, like I wake up at 5 a.m. and my morning is all healing, and then it's movement, and it's taking care of myself, and it's compounding time after time after time after time until it's like I live, eat, and breathe like my healing and being in my energy and talking to the universe and trusting and surrendering, because the universe has never let me down. And that is something that I like have come to this year. Like for a long time, I was really disappointed in other people, but I had to also say like what my part was in that situation, and that the universe never has ever fucking let me down. And I've never let down myself. The outcomes have been different than what I was maybe desiring, but the universe has always been there when I just paid attention enough. So it's really, truly like a balance. And then another thing I wanted to talk about is when you get through this stage of healing and being unbiased with yourself and answering these questions and making these shifts, and like really not being afraid to ask for assistance to the universe. Like that is something that people can literally do to help you trust and surrender. You can tell them, bombard me with signs and synchronicities so I never forget. But you have to also be meditating so you can move slow enough and feel grounded enough to see them, to receive them, right? And especially in the beginning, so you know that you're supported. Like if like there were some days when I would say it like a million times a day, because I was like, is this real? Like, could you send me? And then it was like, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, okay. Or like the next day, like, can you send me at least like 50 today? Just to make sure I'm on the right path. I'm a little tired and cranky today. I'm going to do my healing, but like, just want to make sure my back is covered. You know, all these things, like have conversations. But again, I want to talk about the universe really testing you. Like once you get to that full surrender and trust in the universe, there's always a test right before your manifestation comes in. And people don't talk about that a lot, but there's always a fucking test. And I see people fumble tests all the time. And I've done it. But once you know, like, the universe is testing you, like then you're gonna go out there like, nah, I'm gonna surrender, and I'm gonna like answer every question or every opportunity or every invitation that they send me with grace, and I'm gonna turn down the ones that aren't aligned, right? Because they'll send you, you know, things. It's like, are you gonna choose the same thing you chose last time, or are you gonna choose something else? Are you gonna stick up for yourself? And it's like you stick up for yourself and then you get your dream relationship. Or the universe for the longest time was asking me like, are you a singer? And then I was like, yes. And then they're like, you know, a couple months later, they're like, oh, like, what do you do for a living? And then I was like, I'm a musician. They're like, oh, what music? Like it like kept evolving, and I kept meeting producers, and I kept meeting other singers and musicians and people who were like really high up in the industry. And so you always get tested when you're in that surrender state. And that's how you really know that you've shifted into it, is when that starts to happen. So be mindful of those moments, because it literally means your manifestation could be like moments away. And one conversation that I had with a friend recently was, they had plans to take this trip. And it was like a retreat, and they really wanted to go, but then, financially it wasn't really measuring up on paper. And so they signed up anyways, and they're like, if it's meant to be, then I will be there, basically. And sometimes during these moments, the universe will present something to you, but it doesn't mean that that's going to be the thing, right? Like the test could be like, were you actually going to go to it? Like, if we presented something similar to you like this, were you going to choose it and trust that even if you didn't have the funds right now, that the funds would be coming, right? And so maybe you don't go to that event, but then maybe like in a month, another one presents itself, and now an even better one, and you have the funds, right? And so it's like you like not allowing yourself to be in a state of disappointment and confusion, and just moving on, like moving on to the next thing. It means that the universe has something better for you. Like, that's what I always say, like, oh, there's something better down the road, like, woohoo, and maybe the opportunities come from a different place than what you expect. So that is something also that happens like after you truly make that shift, and then you're really in a flow of trust and communicating with the universe, where you don't have to question anymore. Like, you just go. And there's no like, how am I going to do this? Because the minute you start planning, you constrict your energy. And it's not saying you don't plan everything, but like, you go with the flow. And when your energy feels constricted and the universe is like, what are you doing? You don't do the thing, right? But it becomes, again, just as easy as breathing. And before we get going, I wanted to leave you with one of my favorite phrases that my teacher has taught me from the Himalayas. And there's like a handful of phrases, but this one is the shortest one, and one I always remember. And it's, who am I not to trust? And when they shared that with me, it was something that really hit home, because like, I realized that I was trying to control something that I couldn't control, and almost putting myself above the idea that there was something better for me. Like, only I would know what was the best. Right? And so anytime that I would be nervous about a situation, I literally would say, who am I not to trust? Like, who am I to question spirit and the ancestors when they've spent so much time and so much work putting together a really beautiful journey for myself, and I'm going to go and question them every single step of the way and be disrespectful. Like, that's literally, I was like, why? Like, every time I say that, I'm like, why would I do that? Like, what? Like, I'm not the creator. Like, I don't know what miracles could happen. Like, that's above my pay grade. So like, why wouldn't I trust? Why wouldn't I trust like the energies that know more and connect in a different way and are the ones bringing the opportunities? You know what I mean? Like, it's their job to bring you miracles and opportunities. So you're just gonna not listen? Like, I literally have these conversations with myself all the time, like when I'm in these states, and it's usually when I'm tired or like I just have a lot going on, and it's like, no, I'm overworking. I'm gonna go back to trusting. Like, who the hell am I not to trust? So I really hope that this episode was helpful. There was a lot of information in there, and I was trying to not to go off topic. As you know, I like to meander a little bit. But I'm sending you all lots of love. And just a reminder, please feel free to join the Discord group, or book yourself a reading or a coaching session with me if you need help along your journey. And I also invite, if like folks want to support my podcast, help keep it free, there is an option to become a patron and donate monthly. I think the smallest amount is $3. Which is like a tip basically. So every little bit goes a long way on this journey, and I invite you all to become patrons. And I also just want to share a reminder that my book Empowered Feminitiation is available on Audible. You can find the link in the show notes. And also please be sure to stream my song so I can help bring awareness to the community, get on stages and have lovely conversations as I finish a pop song, right? Like, get them when they're vulnerable. Just kidding, but not really. So I'm sending you all lots of love. Thank you all again for showing up for yourself and for me. I hope you found value in this discussion and look forward to sharing the rest of the episodes with you. And that is a wrap, my friends.
Hey, if you're ready to ascend to happiness and live the life you've always wanted, join me in my Empowered Living Facebook group for socially conscious healers, witches, and spirituals, and sign up to get my free Empowered 5 Practices to Ascended Happiness guide. It's helped others expand their consciousness and soar beyond sight, sound, and imagination in just one day. It's the catalyst you need to embrace your magic and change the world. Just click the link in the show notes, and I'll see you in the group next time.